This is Dr. Richard Zamoff, and he has come here all the way from George Washington University, which is in Washington, D.C. Anybody know where Washington, D.C. is? Okay. And he is the person who started the Jackie Robinson Society with his students there. They're all college students, university students. He's going to tell us a little bit about that. And then one day he got the idea of having students in schools like ours learn about Jackie Robinson. Have you enjoyed learning about Jackie Robinson over the last few months?
Yeah.
Well, today you're going to hear from another expert. Remember how we had
Mr.
one
Carl.
expert? Yes, Mr. Carl Erskine had come here. And so, would you greet Dr. Zamoff the Spring Mill way, please? Good morning, Dr. Zamoff.
Well, good to be here. He was 73 years old, and I am absolutely amazed at how well he's kept himself and how just wonderful he is as a person. I was interested in what Carl Erskine said to you because I didn't want to repeat the same things. I wanted to tell you some things about Jackie Robinson and go beyond that. But I wanted to, since your principal said a little bit about the things that we're doing, I'm sure you've studied a little bit of geography so that you recognize that this is a map of the United States,
Yeah.
right? Okay? Can anybody show me or at least tell me where Indiana is? Okay, where's Indiana? Anybody?
Right.
Sort of-
The
sort of-
red state that's kind of like a
Yeah?
sausage shape.
Okay, that's Indiana.
Florida.
Good, that's Florida.
Alabama.
Close.
DC.
Mississippi. That's Mississippi. That is
Pennsylvania.
New York. Close. Minnesota. The red states are states that where we have Jackie Robinson schools working with us at George Washington University. In those states, there are schools just like yours participating in our project, and those are the schools we have already visited or will be visiting very soon. The yellow states, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but this is Washington State, this is California. Those are states where there are schools that have been talking to us about getting involved in the project. So what we're hoping is that by the end of this year, the school year, we will have schools in all of these states. Right now, we have schools we're working with 14 schools in 6 or 7 states, plus the District of Columbia, plus one school outside the United States, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But I just wanted to say, to tell you how lucky you are to have a principal and to have a school that's interested in getting you involved with Jackie Robinson, because he is one of the most important figures in American history, not in baseball history, not in sports history. I mean, he certainly is important in baseball and in sports, but he's one of the most important figures in American history. Very important part of what we call the civil rights movement. And Carl Erskine gave you a lot of good information about what Jackie Robinson went through and how important he is while he was playing baseball. But what most people don't know about is what Jackie Robinson was involved with after baseball was over. He played baseball for 10 years. After he left baseball, he lived for another 15 years. He died at a very young age, very sadly. But between the time that he left baseball and the time that he died, he did some remarkable things. Jackie Robinson wrote thousands of letters. This book, called First Class Citizenship, The Civil Rights Letters of Jackie Robinson, is a collection of letters that Jackie Robinson wrote and that people wrote to him over the years after he left baseball. There are letters here to presidents of the United States. Can you imagine any athlete today writing letters to the President of the United States?
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine. I think it's hard to imagine. And these are serious letters. They take, some of them are 2 and 3 pages long, where Jackie Robinson is saying to the President of the United States, I think what you're doing is wrong. I think what you're, very respectful, very polite, but he's taking the time to deal with an issue that he thinks is important. You know, another reason I'm very pleased that Carl Erskine came here, because I think that he has demonstrated to you something that's very, very important that also Jackie Robinson demonstrated. The most important thing that you can ever give to somebody else most important thing you can ever give to somebody else is your time. Some people think it's money. Some people think that Carl Erskine gave you a very, very substantial portion of his time. Jackie Robinson would give very substantial portions of his time to those causes that he believed in. And for most of those things, he never received a penny. He did it because he thought it was right. He spent many, many hours working with young people, volunteering at various events. You know, these days you go to a baseball card show, the people signing the autographs are getting paid thousands of dollars just to show up. Well, a series of activities he wants to get involved in. And so here are some of the things that Jackie Robinson did after baseball. He becomes very active in business in a company which has a very high percentage of minority workers, blacks and others. And he works with them to improve their working conditions. He helps to open up a bank in New York City, which lends money to people who have a great deal of difficulty getting money to buy houses, to open businesses, and things like that. He understands that in order to get started in business, you have to have some money to get started. In order to buy a house, you have to have money for a down payment. Jackie Robinson becomes very active in education. He works with young people on issues like drug abuse, on issues like staying in school and getting your diploma, getting your degree. He understands how important education is. He becomes very, very active in politics because he understands that there are certain people who he would rather see get elected than other people. By the way, one of Jackie Robinson's most important qualities, I think, I'm not sure if it's always associated with being a hero, but I think it's a very important quality, is that Jackie Robinson always was able to admit when he made a mistake. He was always able to recognize that sometimes he made a decision about something that didn't turn out to be right. And he wasn't ashamed to say, I was wrong, I'll change my mind. And you don't see that very often